Well, hello everyone. My name is Andy Grant. I'm a director at Blue Marble Recruitment, and I'm talking today to Dave Crumby, who's founder at 360 Talent Solutions. Dave's very kindly agreed to complete a predictive index behavioral assessment, which I'm going to give him a read back of. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about some general points and how his kind of answers relate to the information that's come through the report. So thanks very much, Dave, for taking the time to talk to me today.
My pleasure, Andy. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for spending the 5-10 minutes I think it takes to fill out the behavioural assessment.
Yeah, I was surprised actually. It didn't take long at all. Within a few minutes, it was already finished. It's quite easy.
Yeah, a lot of people say that compared with some of the other tests that are around that do take quite a bit more time. Have you done many other comparable tests in the past?
I've done a few in the past. A few years ago, the likes of DISC and Myers Briggs personality test.
Hmm.
More recently, I've done some with my business coach that I have. He had me do some learning style questionnaires and some leadership style questionnaires as well. So they're the more
Okay.
recent ones that I've done.
Apart from it being quite quick, how have you sort of found the PI test compares when you're actually carrying it out?
So the other ones are quite rudimental in that often they're scored, and so you're reading paragraphs and you have to choose which one, or like whether you strongly agree or don't agree. So you have
Yeah,
to put something within that. Whereas with the predictive index, you have a choice, so you can actually choose whether or not you agree with that or not. So you don't actually have to put down like on a scale of 1 to 10. It's either does or it doesn't, and I quite like that.
yeah. No, absolutely. A lot of people are saying that just the fact that you can choose which words you think apply from a group of possibles, that's it's pretty straightforward to do. There's no kind of hard thinking required. That's one of the reasons why I guess it's so quick.
Yeah, exactly.
Superb. Okay, well, could you perhaps just to sort of introduce things, could you tell me a bit about yourself and your career up to date?
Yeah, so for the past 10 years, I've been supporting life science companies to recruit people both here in the UK and across Europe. I've
Mhm.
really enjoyed working with these companies, and they've gone on to do some amazing things in discovering treatments and distributed them worldwide. So I've really enjoyed that. And over the past couple of years, I've really been wanting to go out on my own and to help companies. And
Mhm.
eventually, I drew inspiration from a turtle. So for a turtle to move forward, it has to stick its neck out. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to stick my neck out. And so a year ago, I created my recruitment consultancy, 360
Yeah.
Talent Solutions. And what I've done is I've taken the last 10 years of what's worked for these companies and turned them into best practices to save time and money for startups, scale up, small to medium enterprises, so I can help these companies to grow with confidence.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like an interesting career journey you've made so far.
Yeah, it's been great. I absolutely love recruitment. I love every day. Every day is different.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I can certainly say that from personal experience. If I was to talk to either, perhaps a colleague, a past colleague, or somebody you've dealt with more recently as either a candidate on recruitment or as a client on the other kind of areas that you're working with, what do you think? Might they describe you?
So, for one, it's a really good question, Andy. And as part of my own development, I always ask for feedback about how they find me, and the things that come through is they always say that I'm a true professional. So if I say I'm going to do something, I always make sure that it gets done.
Yeah,
Another thing is I'm that they really like the way that I communicate. So I communicate openly and clearly. And
yeah,
lastly, I'm quite the motivator. So I'm always keen to get people into action and get things happening.
yeah. Those are interesting points. I think some of those will kind of come to. I think some of those points have come out of the results from the PI test, and I've looked at the report. So I think we'll maybe talk about some specific things, and then we can delve into a little bit more detail. Um, what do you think? You talked about the kind of what they liked about you. Are there any other sort of strengths you think that you can kind of bring to bear that are particularly useful in the work that you do?
So the one thing that I have is I really like to help people to achieve goals.
Hmm.
And I think that's where I get the greatest satisfaction from my job. So whether that's a candidate or a client, I always work hard to help them to get to where they need to get to. And the greatest satisfaction, I don't know about you, Andy, but like when you get a candidate that phones you with a job offer and they're so happy and then they talk about how life changing it can be and they can get a bit emotional on the phone.
Mm.
I've had candidates phone me before where they've had an offer, and I said, well, have you spoke to your husband yet, or have you spoke to your wife yet? And they go, no. I said, well, you might want to speak to them first. I
Yeah.
appreciate, I
Yeah.
appreciate you giving me a call. And on the flip side of that, I love speaking to a client. You know, when they're 6, 12 months down the line after I've helped them to make a hire, and I really enjoy hearing about all of the wonderful things that the candidate's doing at that company.
Yeah. It does give you a real sense of satisfaction. I'd certainly echo that.
Yeah.
A couple of sort of scenarios, I guess, I can maybe put to you and see how you think they might play out. If you were to walk into a room of people you didn't know, it could be a work situation or a social situation, um, would you wait for people to talk to you? Would you find someone to start a conversation with?
Well, that's quite interesting actually, because part of what I do at the moment, I'm doing a lot of networking with local businesses.
Hmm.
And so over the past 2 weeks, I've been going along to networking events. So I can actually answer this honestly, because I think the way I see myself is if I was to walk into a room full of strangers, I would go up to people and start talking.
Hmm.
Uh, but in reality, it took me slightly longer than what I thought. I did hesitate a little bit, but then I
Sure.
thought, well, we're all here to do something, and so I just started going up and introducing myself to people. I quite enjoyed it actually. I get yeah, I found it quite energizing.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, the answers do show that you're quite a sociable person. Possibly not so much in a work context as a a personal context. So that does seem to tally with what you're saying, that you were a little hesitant at first in a kind of networking situation, but then you once you overcame that, you really kind of got in there and started chatting to people.
That's actually really interesting, Andy, because I was wondering why it just took a little bit longer to
Mm.
start speaking with people, and I think it's because I really enjoy speaking informally.
Yeah.
I don't really like to speak in a formal manner, so it's like to make that initial formal introductions a bit trickier. Whereas if it's incredibly casual, I wouldn't have a problem whatsoever.
Mm. I mean, I don't like to talk too much about the kind of A's, B's, C's, and D's that come out of these reports, but I think just looking at where the sociability scale is on the graphs that we can see in the background behind our images here, the sociability is higher on the self, which is how you kind of your natural state, and the self concept, which is how you might be think you're expected to be in a work environment. So that kind of tallies up really. So I think in terms of going into a little bit more detail on that, when you do get talking to people, whether they're new people or whether they're people you already know, is your conversation quite formal? I think you've sort of touched on that. Are you kind of more open and inhibited, and does that depend on whether you're at work or whether you're in a social, personal situation?
It depends on the situation, and or I think it depends on the context as well, because a lot of people I work with, especially abroad, it starts off rather non-business like, to
Hmm.
have to like to break the ice. Whereas in other situations, they do come in a bit formal. But I think for me, it's much more natural if we're starting off in an informal manner, just to get the ball rolling, so to speak, and then
Mm.
I'm much more comfortable then moving into a formal conversation from there.
I think, yeah, certainly the results coming out of the profile suggests that you speak to people in a quite familiar way. You're not a straight laced person. Obviously, it does vary whether you're in a work situation or personal, but that certainly all seems to kind of tie up with the results that have come from your choices that you originally made at the start of the behavioural assessment. In terms of talking about some different areas, Dave, in terms of the kind of technical details, do you like getting involved in that, the real nitty gritty, or do you prefer spending time making sure that kind of the right people are in place to achieve the overall goals that you want to achieve?
So if you gave me the option to either work on the nitty gritty, the small things, or to deal with people, I'll take people any day of the week.
Hmm.
As a business owner, I spend far too much time looking after administrative tasks, as I'm sure
Oh
you'll
yeah.
be aware of. I would much rather
Hmm.
be out speaking to people and helping people to get from A to B, for sure.
Yeah. Now that really is interesting. I mean, the profile results are showing that the relationships and the top level results are the most important things to you, and the minutiae is something that if you can avoid it, you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's gone pretty well so far in terms of the kind of you're agreeing with the results that have come out of the behavioural assessment. So obviously you can kind of see yourself in the way you're being described in the reports.
Yeah, I can. It's kind of like when you're eating dinner. So, like, if you're eating dinner, you eat your vegetables first, and then you get to enjoy all of the nice part of the meal. I guess it's the same with work as well. You have to look after all of the administrative stuff first, so then you
Yeah,
get to do what you enjoy most, which is speaking to people.
absolutely. Yeah, when you're kind of running your own business, there's some things you have to do and some things you want to do, and your day's going to be a mix of those.
Yeah.
What I mean, we've talked a bit about this. I don't know whether there's anything we've not covered, but what do you kind of enjoy most about what you're currently doing?
So what I'm enjoying most is helping people to get from their A to B, and I absolutely love that, and that's where I get the greatest satisfaction from.
Mhm.
When I get presented with a challenge, I'll do everything possible to help that person get to where they need to get to, and it
Mhm.
becomes a bit of an obsession for me. And so, if someone needs help, I'll really do my absolute best to help them.
Excellent. If there was one thing you could change about one aspect of your current position, is there anything you'd change, and if so, what would it be?
What I could do with is another person,
Right.
because I really enjoy initiating projects, getting things started,
Mhm.
and I think it would be a big help if I could have someone just to look after the administrative side of things, and to
Yeah.
see things through while I concentrate on doing what I do best, which is speaking with people.
Yeah, and I think if you had somebody working for you, you could be very effective at sort of getting the best out of them and managing them and making sure that they achieve their full potential from what I've read in your report.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'd really enjoy doing that.
Is that the biggest challenge you find running your own business? It's just how do you spend your time? You've got a finite amount of time and a lot to do, both the operational stuff and the actual kind of interacting with people.
Yeah, I mean, if you speak to me and you ask how my day's going, it's always going to be busy. Like, there's never enough hours in a day.
Mhm.
And with a business coach I had earlier this year, gave me some really good advice on how to manage my time better. And he introduced a book called Eat the Frog. I don't know if you've read that, Andy.
I've not come across that.
And that's really changed the way that I plan my day,
Okay.
and so it's always taking care of what's most important first.
Yeah.
And so even if it's the administrative things that you don't really like to do, by doing what's most important first, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just better to get rid of that thing you don't want to do, otherwise it's hanging around and it's sort of nagging at the back of your mind when you're doing other stuff, and you're less productive because of it.
Yeah, when you're running a business, there's always going to be something else that's going to come up. So if you leave something to later, it's just going to build up and build up. So you best get it done when it's there.
Yeah. I think we've touched on this, but would you say you're most comfortable working alone or when you're kind of bouncing ideas off other people?
Oh, definitely when I'm bouncing ideas off other people.
Mm,
During the pandemic, when everybody was working from home and the world went virtual, it was a challenging time because you're literally doing everything on your own. You feel like you're a bit of a lone wolf at work.
mm.
Whereas now with technology, we can speak virtually now, which has really helped. And it's great to bounce ideas off people like yourself, Andy, about what's working, what can be done better, and so forth.
Yeah, certainly the responses that I've seen that you gave to the behavioural assessment, it suggests that your preferred working style is very collaborative. You're comfortable with team dynamics, working in a group with other people who will have different styles. It just is something that comes quite naturally to you.
Yeah, something I've always enjoyed.
Good. And what about work routines? Do you like following a sort of regular routine? Do you prefer it when you've got a variety of tasks that you have to undergo in any particular day?
So I force myself into a routine. So I know for myself that I'm quite comfortable to be doing a few different things at the same time, which I really
Yeah,
enjoy. But I keep myself to a structure to make sure that I am getting done what's most important. Otherwise, I will just go off and start doing different things. It's just,
yeah,
yeah, I really enjoy, and I think that's probably why I gravitated towards recruitment. As I mentioned earlier, recruitment is no days the same, no 2 days are the same, and what you do in any given day is so varied, and I really
mhm.
enjoy that.
Excellent. And I think the kind of answers that came out suggest that you are adaptable to change, and you aren't as effective if things are too samey. If it becomes too much of a regular routine, it's you don't enjoy it, so you're not really acting at your best.
Yeah, I can never do. I can never be an accountant, or I can never be in a role where you're doing the same thing over and over. It's just something
Mm.
I just want to be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Variety is definitely a kind of real spur to creativity sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I've just got, thanks very much for what you've told me so far. I've got one kind of maybe a little bit left field question that it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are. If you had an opportunity now, to pursue a different career, is there something that you think you might enjoy doing?
So that's a really good question, Andy. It's a question that I've thought about a lot, and if I was to do something different, it would have to be one of my early passions in life, which was sports coaching.
Okay.
So I grew up playing sport, and I played to a pretty decent level, and um, I went for university and studied sport, and I coached at the very top level. And just with the way things work out, I chose a different career path for myself.
Mhm.
But if I could do something different, it would be a sports coach. It's something that I absolutely loved, and whether I get paid or not doing it wouldn't matter to me because I'd
Yeah,
be enjoying it.
excellent. That's a great answer. I came up with something slightly different. Let's see what you think of this. Just
Right.
kind of thinking off the top of my head, I kind of looked through your answers and I thought you could be like a party planner.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've ever organised any kind of celebrations. It looks like an activity that I think could play to your strengths. Have you ever organised any kind of celebrations for anyone?
So I got married earlier this year, and
Hmm.
it was a DIY wedding.
Sure.
So my wife and I we organised the wedding ourselves. It was it was a lot of work
Yeah.
organising it, but I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the organising of it all. Um, but yeah, it was I underestimated how much work it would actually be.
Sure. I guess it's perhaps slightly different if you're doing it for yourself rather than if you're doing it for someone else, because the pressure is slightly different. But I think if you were kind of if somebody said, that here's a do we want you to organise for a third party, I think you'd look at what the overall goal was that you had to achieve. You'd identify the best people, focus on the detailed aspects, and then delegate the minutiae to them, while you concentrate on the big picture, and you'd help the team to work together effectively to make the event a huge success. That's kind of pulling together the various strands of the things that we've talked about, the various aspects of your natural working style, your personality that have come out of the the results from the Predictive Index Behavioral Assessment that you took. How do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of creating events is pretty energizing. I'd be really keen to do it. But what I know from experience that when it comes to the vendors, that can be quite challenging because
Yeah,
if if we need to get if we need to get people to a certain point, then I'll be challenging all parties to make sure that that happens.
sure. It's maybe something to bear in mind. You never know how circumstances change, but obviously you're doing very well at what you're doing now. So long may that continue.
Thank you very much, Andy. I'll keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for spending the time to do the behavioral assessment, Dave, and thanks for taking the time speaking to me today about the results. And I hope it's been useful for you. It's certainly been an interesting exercise for me.
Yeah, it has. It's given me food for thought, and it's a reminder that I just need to sometimes take a bit of time just to reflect on not only how I see myself, but how others will see me. So
Hmm.
that's something that I've got from the session. So I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks very much, Dave.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers. Take care.